Hello, and I think we're live. My camera is not working, so you won't be able to see my lovely face. I can't get it going, so I'll wait here until a few people come in. I think we have myself and Alex is in the chat. Anybody else in the chat, let me know when you rock in. It's just gone live on Patreon. Let me just get my headphones on here, so keep things nice and quiet. For all of the patrons, the news is that those who are expecting an old badge, it's on its way. Just put them on I just posted them this evening, so should be there soon enough. Some of them are going to America, Canada, UK, Australia, all over the shop. So some of them might take a while to get there, but we'll see what happens. Because I'm a cheapskate. Let's see if anybody's going to come in here at all today. Now, these live streams, I have been so lax on my live streams. And these are going to be becoming a very regular thing. These are going in the book. I'm finally getting my ass in gear with this goddamn podcast. Finally. I know I've been slipping with my production of live stream and Patreon content, but I have a good bit of Patreon content in the works and planned. I am going to get a bit more organized now that my day job is drying up for a few months. Finally going to get things sorted, getting through all these things I needed to read, etc. We have 4. My God, we got 4. This is it. We're living the dream. Let's see. Okay, what am I going to talk about today? I had a few little things to talk about. 5. Okay, people are streaming in here now, so and hit that like button there, and we might get. Actually, it won't make much difference, but hit the like button anyway. I know we are. It's a hidden stream, but okay. What was I going to talk to today? So it's been quite a while. I don't think I've had any discussion. There's Christopher. How are you, Christopher? This is in the chat. This is the first time I think I've done a live stream since the US election, which is kind of crazy. I can't believe that. I thought I had done them. I was so kind of snowed under. I didn't get. I haven't been doing the live streams for about a month, so which I'm going to do one every week for a while now. But yeah, the US election has come and gone, and you know it's not surprising that Joe Biden won. I certainly thought he was going to win. I thought he was going to win once COVID hit, essentially. And unlike what a lot of panelists thought, they thought that during the Brumaire series, most people thought that it would be an extremely low turnout. It turned out to be, counterintuitively, an extremely high turnout for US standards, which is, kind of makes sense because you can just mail your vote in. It's a lot easier. And I think people are sitting at home. A lot of people like furloughed and stuff like that. Or, well, you don't have furlough. I don't know if you've got furlough over there, but a lot of people working from home and stuff. And the whole shit show of George Floyd and the virus mishandling and everything, I think it just, it's like a perfect storm for Donald Trump. But it literally shows, though, the meek and pathetic win. I know they won by 5 or 6 million votes, but Hillary Clinton won by 2 or 3 million votes. So, and she was a uniquely detested candidate. So, the fact that Joe Biden could only do this by only barely squeak by in the Electoral College, really, it kind of says something. It points to the what a terrible candidate Joe Biden is, and what a shit party the Democrats are. And I've been thinking quite a lot about how we analyze stuff in the Brumaire series. Now, we were thinking, in the middle of the George Floyd protests, things were looking kind of very crazy in America at the time. But looking back, they really, your head can get caught up in internet land, and your head can get caught up in reading like the Brumaire and seeing the Brumaire's dynamics and seeing paltry echoes of it in the real world. And I think like a lot of our at the minute analysis of what was happening was certainly I think most of the panelists at one stage were saying things, including myself now, like we expected a military coup and a new election. And we were very far from giving a good analysis of that. And it's led me to think about kind of fairly deeply about like what is the nature of the political stuff that's happening in America. And I think what we saw on the street is the typical kind of riot dynamic that we've that erupts in American society, and honestly in most societies that it erupted in England here in 2012, I think it was 2011. But what seems to have been heightened in the American experience is that I think the nature of social dialogue being mediated through social media has led people to like imagine that the kind of fake battles they have, these keyboard battles they have online, are somehow going to be replicated in the real world. And I think what we quickly have seen, the anxiety that the social media nexus has caused people in America and around the world, when it's actually you look at how the real world it plays out in the real world, not in your personal headspace and your personal stress or whatever, but the dynamics on the street is that like it's a far cry from all the shit talk and the hype talk that's going on. And what we end up in is, unfortunately, is another type of kind of LARPing. It's hard to distinguish what has happened with the George Floyd, thinking back on it now, as being of a massively different scale. It's probably bigger, and I think it's probably than Occupy. But Occupy also went across a lot of the country in different places. So I think it's bigger in scale, and I think it also has a more. I think there is a more radical. It's hard to know whether it's more radical or if it's still very liberal. But I think what we see in places like Portland and that, where stuff is, I don't know if stuff's still going on, it went on for a long time, that it quickly settled into this kind of like fake battle between cops and protesters. Not to say that protesters weren't beaten up or that they're not getting taken by the feds or stuff like that. But we're talking about we're not talking about a revolutionary situation. It's like it became nearly like if you go to a march in central London and all that there is a certain known dance between the protesters, certainly the organizers, and the cops, and that they settle into this idea, this thing of get the horses on the street and the kettling and boom, 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 and it's all, they're very able to manage it, and both sides kind of nearly go home happy. We've had our riot and blah blah blah. We've had where we've had our protests, we've had our whatever, and we've had the cops in the street, and it all gets settled. And we see in Portland, these places, they settle into a rhythm. It's like it's been the radical element of it. I know what's going on and on, but there's also a distinctly kind of a ceremonial nature to it that points to the actual vapidity of it. It points, I don't mean that I'm being harsh here, but it means like it's not a real thing at that point. It's not a real thing. It's no threat to the system. If anything, it just allows the system to experiment with tactics. Okay, so I feel like that there is a huge amount of LARPing going on in the real world of radical politics in in all countries, in all of these countries. It's the same model and bullshit, the same techniques of organizing, the same techniques of rioting or protesting. The same, I have more respect for the riots, to be honest. The same this kind of protest logic being handled in a certain way, and we get to have our outrage. Oh, look, did you see what they did in Portland? Did you see what they did to this guy? They hit this guy in the head. That guy got grabbed up by the feds. But from a systemic point of view, this is it's like a parlor game. And I think it nearly works like for us. If you're living in Montana or Tennessee or somewhere and you're a radical, you get to look at Portland, you get to go, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. Right. But in reality, it will have no lasting functional organizational form. So it's going to dissipate and it's going to go. And I feel like all the power that's come out of that George Floyd movement, great power. It's coming from a deep well of real antagonism and a real contradiction. But, the radical left, as of yet, has not got off its ass and delivered any kind of power base. No power base that essentially stands for the class itself. Okay. Now, so I've been kind of wanting to say that for a while. This antagonism that plays out on social media and all this stuff, like include like podcasts in there, like as in the podcast. I always critique my own podcast for it essentially largely acting as consumption. It's a consumption thing. How do podcasts affect me? They do give me some educational thing, that's undeniable, but a lot of it is just pure consumption, something to put on when you're doing the dishes. So and the online battles, like, it's such non-material bullshit. Yeah, you may fight about like, oh, the minimum wage, this, we want $15 and blah blah blah. But in the end of the day, like, it's something. But you can see from the stuff that's come out of it this time that it's unless it leads to the creation of independent class vehicles, it works as a kind of it's a media aesthetic, and it hasn't gone beyond media aesthetic so far. So, like, that's our job, is to get beyond education and consumption of leftist stuff, and reading that next book. Oh, did you read this new book? Oh, what about that book and the next one and this other one? Oh, what about this reading group? Blah blah blah. And getting our actual asses into gear with respect to actually doing stuff. Erika says that's because most leftists are basically Star Trek socialists. Yeah, in Ireland we call them smoked salmon socialists. Yeah, I think I nearly like I like smoked salmon socialists. But like that's kind of a and that's a kind of like a middle class socialist, which are more liberal stuff. So it's not exactly the same thing. Also, hi to the giant Borg gecko. I like that name. Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to throw that out there because I feel like um, when all is said and done, I expect a lot of the liberal stuff to get wrapped back into the Democratic Party, but for the Democratic Party not to be able to deliver next to anything, I don't think they'll be able to. I'd be surprised if Biden is able to deliver anything. I don't know what he could deliver that would be of note. Um, Everything will get locked in the Senate, business as usual. American Republicans won't want to allow the Democrats to do anything. The Democrats don't even fucking want to do anything. They want to be able to be seen to be blocked by the Republicans. So we won't see anything from it. So I expect things to simmer for a while and to continue on their downward general vibe and trajectory for the country. Certainly, American geopolitical influence has been, I think, really badly damaged around the world with respect to for coronavirus, but also like the fact that Trump nearly got back in. Who's out there blaming the fucking Russians this time? Seriously, is anybody? Has anybody like? Had they been actually trying to blame the Russians for that 76, 67 million votes that Trump got? Like that's what I want to see. How many of those were Russians? So like that whole thing that like Trump was like a Russian plot is, totally absurd. The fact that he can get such a high vote with all the vaccine and everything, economic crisis, says something deeply, deeply wrong with American society. I think as well, I was talking to somebody. I was talking to a guy who's got. He's going to do a bit of editing for me, but he's got a new podcast starting himself, which I haven't checked out yet. What's the name of it now? Oh, it's on my. Let me see if I can find it. Give it a plug here. See if I can find the podcast name here. So. 1 second here now. See if I can find it. It's called Auxiliary Statements. I'll share the screen here, which is here, so people can see it. It's on SoundCloud. It's called Auxiliary Statements, and some good left stuff to do some Ralph Miliband, Ellen Meiskin's Wood, Agrarian Capitalism, Class Conflict, blah blah. It's a new one. I was chatting to Jack behind it. So, but we're chatting about the whole QAnon thing, and it made me think about, why is the US so riven with, really kind of insane conspiracy theories? I think it was something like up to, somebody can correct me in the chat here now, but like a majority of people voting Republican kind of thought QAnon was real. So like one thing like that I think has to be kind of fundamental to this US phenomenon is that like when Britain had their empire, now they had some propaganda, they had some stuff about helping people around the world, but really everybody knew we're just going over there, we're taking your shit, we're taking your land, we're taking your stuff, we're going to have our troops in your country, and we're going to have a viceroy or whatever, and he's going to be some posh English toff, and they're going to rule your country, and we're going to control it, and we're going to ship all the stuff back to the core, and we're going to be rich as fuck. We're going to build railways and roads so we can export the stuff out of your country. And there wasn't like this, not to the, I don't think to the same extent. Like in America, like it's about denial of empire, how we're going out to help everybody, and I think like when, people have the core, nature of their country is denied, even the fact that there is an empire is denied. That kind of cognitive dissonance, I think, plays with people's heads, and I think that it's that the core cognitive dissonance about like the nature of yourself and your country, and I think that leads people into conspiratorial theories about how the world works, as opposed to you can either let the veil fall from your eyes and see things for they are, or you can blame the man behind the curtain. And I think that has undoubtedly, for me, got something to yeah that has got to have something to do with it. Here's like SpectralTheory: we are the British Army and we are here to take your land. Like that's fucking it. I must say, it's just been the anniversary of as well of this year of one of the big massacres by the British in 1920, when they went into Croke Park is like the home of the Gaelic sports, where they have like it's a big stadium, 90,000 seater stadium, where you have the All Ireland hurling and football championships, and there was a game on there in the middle of the War of Independence, and that I think that morning like the IRA had like assassinated like 6 or 12 top British officers and spies, not spies, but more like the guys who run the spies, like the intelligence services, and they assassinated them all at the same time, like 9 o'clock in the morning, and they shot them all in their beds. And like as a retaliation, the British sent in armored cars, essentially, with mounted machine guns, and drove them like into the pitch and turned them on the players and the crowd, and they killed. I have to check it now, but they killed quite a lot. So I think it's just the 100th anniversary. I was watching the hurling semi-final there today, a replay of it, and let's see here. I think this might be the original Bloody Sunday, but how many did they kill? Let's see. Quite a few. Let me see. 14 dead and 80 14 dead and 80 injured. So they basically just opened up on the fucking crowd and on the players. So I just thought I'd bring that one in there for people. It's nothing like giving them about the British. Huh? Me living in London, yes, raising a son with an English accent. Oh my god, I have to get him home quick now. All right, so where am I going with all this bullshit? Yes. Christopher says, let's have a look here. What is he saying in the chat? Great documentary started in Irish RTE last week called The Hunger, the story of the Irish famine. Yeah, I haven't watched it, but like I have read Tim Pat Coogan's book called anybody remember what Tim Pat what's it like, the something conspiracy, or what is it called? The Famine Plot, England's role in Ireland's greatest tragedy. And like, if you wanted to get an idea for like what went on, I don't know how much it's probably, if it's along the same lines, but if you want to get an idea of what the British state were doing, like essentially the policy was at the time was, you can imagine like, Ireland was technically a part of the same country, but you can imagine today in England, let's say if there was a radical shortage of food, right? And say that, whatever, a massive shortage of food, and with all the food banks around the country, the British government said, well, what we want to do is we don't want to mollycoddle people. We want them to, liberalize them and allow them to become, entrepreneurs. and not reliant on the state. So we shut down all our food banks, and like half the population starves to death. That was their actual policy. They shut a large amount of food banks. They shut them all essentially halfway through the famine, and that was the Liberals. So here's me standing up for the Tories at the time. Like I think Peel was the Prime Minister. That's who set up the police initially. So the police, you ever hear them called the Peelers? That's after Peel. I think he was the head of the Met in the UK, and so like he was actually trying to open them in Ireland, and they were trying to increase the funding, but the Liberals came in and they decided to close them all, and so like people really goddamn starved. And the official state policy for England at the time was to actually depopulate all of Ireland and to open it up for ranching, so that there'd be a large beef and cattle ranch. So that was the official policy. Yeah, and the guy who was the Prime Minister who closed them all, the Queen made him like the highest order, whatever the highest order is, the Cross of Saint Asshole or something, and for his work in helping the Irish during the famine. So there you go. But the Queen is nice. The royal family are nice. Yeah. I'm going off track here. What else did I want to talk? Oh yeah, we've had also the stock market, new stock market highs. The stock market highs are what can we say about the new stock market highs? I think this is great. Like somebody was saying to me that they heard that Michael Hudson, who I think is a good economist, by far the best of the MMT type economists, he said that like it's MMT. He calls quantitative easing MMT for the rich, and I think that's precisely correct. I think that's really, really, really on the money. I think U.S. capital is in a true I do think they're in it. Well, it's hard to know how much of a bind they're in, but I feel like they I think the capitalist class internationally have decided that they do not want a cleansing crisis like the 1930s. They do not want capital to be grossly devalued and a reboot in the rate of profit. And I think they're afraid of the consequences of what would happen socially if that would happen. I think they're like, if I was a dirty ass rich capitalist, well, not so much a specific capitalist, but if I was the capitalist class, there is no organized working class oppositional force. So I would if I was them now, I think it's a great time to reboot it. Why not? Go for it. Fuck it. You'll have some turbulence. You'll have some capitalists losing out. But from a systemic point of view, I think it would be a wise decision. But they seem to have made the choice that they don't want to do that. So what does that mean for capital? Well, at the moment, you have basically what seems to be, the Federal Reserve essentially they determine the price of junk bonds. So they're absolutely determining that market. But like all that other money that people are selling from, I've got a junk bond for some company in America. I sell it to the Fed. I get my money back on it, and I'm left with the money. Now, what am I going to do? Some of it will go just into the bank or something. But like a lot of these people who have the money to invest, they'll look to something else and it'll go into the stock exchange. So this is causing, well, they're not probably, not that we know of, directly buying stocks and shares, but they're buying bonds. But the secondary effect is it's going to be pumped into that, probably pumped into foreign currencies too. I don't know if we've seen much of that action like we did the last time. The last time the Brazilian currency was held ridiculously high for a long time due to influxes of foreign speculative capital. But like, I think what we're seeing essentially is a secondary effect is the bump in the stock market. And what does it mean? Like, what does this mean? Like, what it essentially means is that because the whole world runs in the dollar now, not everything is the dollar, but a huge amount of international transactions runs in the dollar, and all multinationals have to be able to trade in the dollar. All foreign central banks need large reserves of dollars, both for day to day and also for tax on their currency and stuff like this. So, that in itself, that need for Malaysia, Russia, China, whatever, to have the dollar so that they can do stuff in the international markets and they can protect themselves from the bond market, like the currency market, the traders, like that in itself is a tax on all of these countries. They need to like literally hand over cars, weapons, whatever the hell. No, maybe not directly to the US, but circularly, the US will benefit from it, and they'll have to hold dollars. So it's like they're giving stuff to America, and they're basically getting bits of dollars that they need to hold on to essentially to be able to trade. So it's like a tax on all these countries. But now that's your initial tax. That's just like your reserve currency tax, right? But now we seem to be having like a secondary tax. Is the only way I can, kind of term it, is like that you're having like a situation whereby those that hold US stocks are essentially being made good. Okay, that the valuation of their stocks is way out of kilter with the fundamentals. And this is only being done by the Federal Reserve of printing money. So if you are like, and who owns American stock market? It's overwhelmingly going to be Americans and probably some Europeans and a bit of Japanese, but it'll overwhelmingly be US capital. Okay. So you're going to have a position whereby the US Federal Reserve creates new tokens of currency and it will inflate certain asset classes. Now, the amount of production is not going up, okay? But the amount of monetary units is going up. So the amount of monetary units associated to like, rich oligarchic, or just very wealthy Americans that own the bourgeois American bourgeois are getting a second stipend from the reserve currency status. They're basically getting made whole with no chance of actually really losing their shirt at a systemic level. So it's like a secondary tax on the world system. Yeah, up and above like like you're just the force to use the dollar international trade. And I think this is going to accelerate shifts away from the dollar. That's my whole take on it. It'll work for as long as it will, but I think other countries are going to absolutely be shifting away from the dollar more so. I think in the next 10 years, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 10% reduction in the US dollar holdings. Because people are saying like, it's bad enough we have to like, get done once over the US currency, but now we're actually paying these rich fuckers in America basically so that they can't lose money. Yeah. So I think that's going to be something that's going to come out of this crisis. And certainly I think before the coronavirus hit, something like in I think it was in February or January, that there was looked like there was going to be a stock market crash. And the whatever thing the mechanism they set up, I think it was in Dodd-Frank bill, but they managed to be able to do it so that the Federal Reserve could inject liquidity without having to go to the Senate and Congress. So remember all that stuff in 2008 where Hank Paulson was on his knees going, oh, sign the 250 billion or the 400 billion or whatever it was. This sucker could go down, right? But this time, they don't need to go to Congress for that. And they were authorized to just, do it automatically. And I think the amount of liquidity they pumped into the market was bigger than they did at that time in 2008. I can't remember the figures. Somebody might know in the chat, but I think it was something along the lines of like, if it was 300 billion that time. It was 450 billion this time. So these sums are being pumped in as an automatic stabilizer for US capital at the expense of world capital. So I do think we're going to see an acceleration away from the dollar. I don't think it's not going to be one of these stupid overnight type of things. Like, look at what happened to the British pound. It was a 20-40 year process. Okay. Lord. Arguments in the giant Borg Gecko says 2 trillion. I think I'm not sure what the 2 trillion figure is. I think that might have been more the actual stimulus bill, as opposed to, like, initially there was no stimulus bill, the first injection. So the stimulus bill was like secondary stuff when the coronavirus hit, as far as I know. Okay. Yeah, so anything, what's next? I have a few notes down here. The vaccinations. What do people think of these vaccinations? Who's going to get a vaccination? Here, say in the chat now, if you're going to be offered the vaccine, would you take it? What do people say in the chat? Give us a yes or a no. I'm kind of like, I'm surprised so many of them are even like, look like they're going to be successful, as in that they're successful enough to get to stage 3. I would have thought you'd be quite likely that a lot of them would not work or have serious side effects. But there are dangers rushing these things to market. Like, I do think they're going to, I was looking at some stuff. Somebody sent me this thing on, like, some UK immunologist who's kind of saying, oh, everything was wrong. We were all immune to it anyway. We should never close down anywhere. It's just like the common cold. A guy, immunologist, saying that because basically we had coronavirus type common cold viruses before, that 30% of the country would have already been immune. So the lockdown was a stupid idea. But that's the reason why I'm getting into this. Like, the actual, scientists, like, don't agree with that position, and they say that, like, they think like up to 90% of people have had at least one coronavirus cold, in their lifetimes, and they don't seem to be immune for long. So this is the whole thing about coronavirus. Like, will a vaccine be 30 minutes? Or sorry, 30 minutes, yeah. 3 months? Like, will it last any longer than 3 months? They can't really have much longitude studies of long-term effect of these because they're rushing them out. So I think it's fairly likely if we don't get long-term immunity from the colds, we are unlikely to get long-term immunity from these vaccines. That's just like, that'd be my hunch. So I kind of expect them, like, you get a new flu jab every year. Are we going to need a new corona jab every 4 months, every 3 months, every season? Even for the exact same coronavirus, not even a new strand? I think something like that is very likely for workers in, high-risk workers, nurses, doctors, teachers, old folks' homes, all that kind of stuff. But I do think it will lead to opening up. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if things are largely opening by the summer, or definitely by the end of next year. I think we'll see large-scale rollouts. So, like, fuck it. I'm well up for the vaccines. Hopefully they work. Seriously. Like, I'm kind of sick of not being able to fucking just go around, to be honest. Not that I do much. But, like, just even able to, like, I don't know, go to the park. I'm at home educating my son. And like when you can't go and see his friends, you're basically doing intensive one-on-one stuff all the time, and it's a lot of hard work. So yeah, I was expecting the vaccines. I was like saying, if we've got one in 5 years, yeah, okay, I'll go with that. So, but so many of them seem to be looking reasonably likely to be successful. I think, I think we might be getting out of this fucking hellhole. What do people think? Here's hoping. Right. Anybody got questions in the chat? I'm after waffling on now for 40 minutes. We've got 14 viewers. My God. We got them all here tonight. We got them all. My webcam has stopped working on StreamYard for the last... It stopped working before for a while, and now it's totally stopped again. So it's very annoying. I might have to get a new one. Yeah, I think I don't like. It depends who you are. I don't think any of us will be offered it unless we're working in healthcare. I think none of the listeners to my show will be offered it because we're probably not high risk. We're all you typically under the age of 60. So I think. Yeah, Erika says she's skeptical about the vaccines. I expect that there is, I think what I would be skeptical about, not so much the efficacy of them, but the side effects. I do think that if the side effects were, just less than, from the capitalist point of view, if the side effects from the vaccine are only 50% of the deaths you would get by not having it, by just letting the stuff run rampant, I think they'd go with that and tell everybody to take it. I wouldn't be surprised if state secrets are heavily covering all of these trials, and somebody told me that the chief executive of Pfizer, after their shares went up after they announced it, sold a whole load of stock. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll be grand by May at the latest. Well, you're more an optimist than me, Christopher. Bailout stuff. What do you mean, the giant board gecko? What are you talking about there? You want me to chat on the bailout? I don't know. I kind of talked a bit about it, but what's going to happen in America to I think we're going to see the Republicans trying to stymie all ability for the Democrats to help in a meaningful way. Not that the Democrats are that much interested in, but even at the most rudimentary level, I can imagine they'll just go straight to the playbook when Obama was in, just try and block absolutely everything. Yeah, 3 trillion were pumped in that, but that's I think the 3 trillion weren't pumped in through these automatic things. A lot of that was through the CARES Act, which was an act of Parliament of Congress. But hey, I'm no fucking expert on that stuff. I don't follow it. The major thing I think what I was talking about earlier is, one thing that I have a research project that maybe people might be interested in. This is a research project that I think, after doing the Revolutionary Strategy series, I think now would be a really good time. And I think if, listeners or patrons want to get involved with this one, it could be very interesting. But we've just had the failure of the Sanders experiment, right? Trying to work through an organization that's not an organization of the working class, not for the class for itself. The Democratic Party is an amalgamate. It's essentially a bourgeois party, that has working class elements in it, much like the UK Labour Party is. As you can see, all the shenanigans going on now. You see that these were in the UK, they somehow the left managed to get a hold of the levers of power to some extent. Some of the levers of power, the Labour Party, but they weren't able to do anything. And now you'll see the lawyers, the corporate manager types in the Labour Party and all that. They've taken control again. So what I'm interested in doing is a historical analysis of all attempts by leftists, so I mean like radical leftists / to revolutionaries, to entryism in a major party, and what were the successes of it. Okay, the dominant thing from like I think it's reasonably popular among like radical left groups in the UK is entryism into the Labour Party. You know, it's been tried in the 70s, 80s. It's tried now again. Didn't work. We have, you know, the Sanders movement didn't work. We had the Rainbow Coalition with Jesse Jackson, didn't work. You know, how many times, and I would like to do a historical analysis of entryism, yeah, of dragging a non-working class party. So I don't consider the Labour Party in England to really, or it's not a working class party. Like, it's not a party of the working class for the class itself. You know, it's always been kind of a establishment, linked to the establishment at the highest levels anyway. You know, it was never a revolutionary party. When all the countries in Europe had revolutionary parties, the Labour Party was never like that. So I think it's about time. I think we probably have at least 100 years of history. We may even have 150 years of history. And I would like to see the statistical evidential analysis of the success of that as a strategy, not just a tactic, because let's be honest, it's the only strategy that any of the major countries, you know, like the Jacobin types, put forward. It's their strategy. Well, really, you would think it should be like a tactic, but it's the strategy. So that is a project that and we're going to try and get going within the Emancipation Network. But we'll be looking for people with history who know the different countries. So like I'd probably be able to get some help and put together like one for Ireland. I don't even know if I know enough about English politics, but like I would love to like do all of Western Europe, North America, all of North America, all of South America, load of Asia, so like even African countries. But I think a lot of their politics, yeah, like as much of the world as we can possibly get in. Like they were kind of more anti-colonial battles, but there was definitely also communist battles there, Angola and stuff like that, and Burkina Faso. So it wasn't. There was lots, wasn't there? Yeah, for fuck's sake. Yeah, I'm going to shut my mouth now, show my ignorance. But all of these places, and we're going to look into entryism. What do people think about that in the chat? Like, do people think this is an interesting project? Because I think, like, for me, it's just like, you know, when we're doing the revolutionary strategy series, you know, I gave as much chance to arguing out the idea of entryism. You know, it's something that I've you know, gave very a lot of like leeway in thinking about it. I wasn't somebody who just batted out immediately, but I feel just like that, you know, unless the thing stands on its own 2 feet as specifically for the working class, I think that it has no chance. And like, you know, when the Labour Party came up in England, for example, yeah, it, you know, not saying that it was a true like communist or socialist party or anything of the sort, but like they didn't do entryism into the Liberal Party, you know, because they knew the Liberals weren't really their friend. Yeah, you had the Tories and the Liberals. They didn't enter into the Liberal Party, You know, sure, some did, but essentially, you know, they built their own power block, which, you know, with all its goddamn problems. But so that's something I'm thinking we should really work on. I think it would be very interesting to have this debate with all these people who are putting this forward as a strategy, you know, yeah, it's AOC is the next one or whatever. Like, we're going to see, like, just, I think, like, the overwhelming defeat. I'd be surprised if we have next to any successes in that. Okay. Yeah. What else was I going to say? Shit, it's hard talking like this for ages. We've got 18 viewers now. Angola was anti-colonial national liberation. Yeah, I think most of the African one were essentially that. You know, Sankara was not a socialist. I thought Sankara was a socialist. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought Sankara was a socialist. Well, he called himself a Marxist anyway. Marxist-Leninist, Pan-Africanist. Yeah. I watched a documentary about him a few months ago. Okay, is there anything else from the chat then? Because I'm on 50 minutes. This talking on your own is hard work. Damn hard work. Alex says, yeah, my mild faith in a Bernie wave was quickly drowned. Yeah, like, you know, like, here's one thing I want to say about this entryism. Like, a really, really key flaw about entryism that I haven't heard people say too much is that, like, not so much just the institutional stuff of how they're going to fuck you, right? They're going to fuck you, okay, but let's think about who the characters are that come through, like who Bernie was and who Corbyn was. Okay, now for you to survive as like the left wing, like member of the UK Labour Party, like Corbyn or somebody like that, for ages, you're going to have to eat shit your entire career. You're going to be sitting there with like a bowl of fucking your own excrement, and you're going to be forced to eat it every day for 40 years. Now, like, what kind of person puts up with that? You know, what kind of person actually will sit there and take that shit? And you can say, oh, they're in there for the long battle. Honestly, I think the type of person who puts up with that, like, it says something to what kind of a battling mentality they're going to have when they get into a position where they have power. I just think that they're undeniably going to be like that kind of a person with why can't we just all get along? My good friend Joe Biden, yeah, my good friend Joe Biden. Can we all get along? You know, and I think, like, you know, systemically, that's who's going to survive in there. And see, you are Corbyn or you're Bernie and you get in. Are you going to be the man then to go and burn it all down? No chance. You're going to try and be reasonable with these guys. Could we not all be reasonable, blah, blah, blah? And look how reasonable these fuckers are in the Liberal Central Committee or, you know, headquarters. They're scumbags. They know political infighting, you know? And the only reason is like these guys like Corbyn and then like kind of surviving, because they don't have any. They just, while they might have a socialist politic, as in they might want a social democratism or whatever you want to call it, or even like a worker co-op kind of stuff like that, they absolutely are unprepared for what it would take to do that. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Like, what? Name anybody in the UK Labour Party or in the American Democratic Party, just one, who you think, like, if they got the groundswell behind them, they would lead like fucking full on trying to work or corporatize the entire country. There's nobody, not one. Yeah. And so like that it says something like that people have to get a grips with. If you're going in with this idea of, oh, the next one will get AOC and blah 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 blah, you're all you're trying to do, all you're doing is arguing over how long is the chain on my leg. It's like the dog who's tied up arguing over a longer chain. Please, sir, can I have a longer chain? Okay. Like, and you might get a marginally longer chain, and they probably won't even succeed, because to get there, watch how much shit AOC is going to have to eat for the next 10 years. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. Not that you would, like, you know, I think it's safe to say that somebody like Jeremy Corbyn's not a careerist, but I think it's safe to say that somebody like AOC is a careerist. That is, she's a left careerist, but I think it's safe to say they're a careerist. And it's very hard to see somebody like Ilhan Omar, and taking right-wing talking points in the middle of the George riots, where she was saying, like, these people coming in here rioting, they're from out of town. I don't know them. I don't see them here. Who are these people coming in and burning stuff down? It's like, seriously? That's going to be your savior? You know, like, that's the best you get to offer, is somebody who will actually take right-wing talking points at a moment of actual movement. A moment, I'm not going to say it's much more than that movement, but that's where I am tonight. I'm going to set one up for next Wednesday, same time. I'm going to set them up every Wednesday for the next month, and then going to every second Wednesday. So got my house in order here. We're doing Marie Kondo on our house. My God, I read Marie Kondo's book. Let me say that again. I read Marie Kondo's book. I don't know. I'm kind of ashamed to say that, but actually, I'm telling you, we're sorting out our gaff. We were hoarding stuff. The whole gaff is just falling apart, with stuffed full of junk. And I'm telling you, if anybody's a hoarder, if anybody has troubles with like getting their house in order, I would recommend you read Marie Kondo. Ignore all the weird, very sexist, weird Japanese stuff in there. But as an actual process, she's pretty good. It's fucking good. When is the next reading series starting? That's from Erika. The next reading series is starting. Hopefully, I have to ask the participants, but we're hoping in the new year, in January. I still have 6 to 8. I think I have 14 episodes of edited premiere to release. So I'll be releasing some soon enough. I've got a 2-parter about a socialist MMA podcast, talking about martial arts and sports and boxing and MMA and politics and shit. So I got that coming up. Hopefully this week I'll have that out. I have part 6 of the Arnold Schroeder Fight Like an Animal series to release. I've got a 2-parter with Mike McNair in the books to interview him for a good long session about the revolutionary strategy. Hopefully we'll get through some more of the questions. That's coming in 3 or 4 weeks. I'm going to do an interview with Greg Belvedere, who did the one we did on John Michael Greer, on a book on by what is it? I can't even remember. Is it Reactionaries? It's a book on reactionary thought. We're going to do hopefully a 2-parter on that. So I have a load of stuff in the plans, and on top of all that, I'm going to be doing TSSI, and hopefully I know I keep saying it, get finished reading all those papers again. But now that I'm free, I am actually starting. I've actually put away. I've actually got a lot of reading, starting to get reading done. Now that I have time, so it's all going good. And I posted out the badges today to the patrons who are owed a badge. So things are coming together. I love yous and leave yous, and we'll